All right, traders, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Tuesday, September 3rd. I almost said Monday. I've been doing that a couple days today, but we had the holiday in the beginning of the week, so sometimes that throws you off a little bit. So we will recap today's price action. Kind of an, I was going to say, I wouldn't say interesting day, but usually the first trading of the month, there's some new money put to work. It didn't seem like it today in equities. However, if you kind of look at some groups did wonderfully today. But if you weren't in any of these groups or you didn't participate in some of these groups, you may have experienced more of the chop that we saw on the tape. So first things first, a couple of names that reported after the close. Coupa Software. I find this interesting because Coupa Software is one of the better performers in the software group, and recently some of the names have kind of gotten hit on earnings. Viva Systems, Okta was another name that was all over the place. Workday fell on earnings. Coupa Software and another name that comes to mind, Salesforce, did pretty well on earnings, and we'll see. It's still, they haven't had their earnings call, but I've listened to their earnings calls before, and they've done pretty well on them, as some kind of using that as a benchmark. But up to 148, so nice beat there, and maybe that the sentiment got a little bit washed out in the group, considering some of the other names that reported earnings recently. A couple other things on the tape. It's funny because we haven't seen too many names, come out and warn, right? Like we saw this in, so Microchip came out and reaffirmed. Tyson, on the other hand, what is it, Tyson, TSN, came out and said that they're having some challenges in the last quarter, so they're down. But my point is, we haven't really seen too many names come out and warn about earnings. You look at what happened to Ulta last week, got destroyed, and but we just haven't seen too many names come out ahead of the actual earnings print and mention that they're having a difficult time. So I don't know. Maybe this sets up a trend that we're seeing, because both Microchip, which their numbers were fine, they said that they're going to reaffirm their numbers, but Tyson warned. So let's get to today's price action. What stands out at me right now is something that I said last week a couple times. I was on Cheddar last week talking about this too, but right now, even though bonds gave back a lot of their gains, TLT only finished up 13 basis points. But it just, for now, equities are not trending. And talking about the overall indices, it's not like you can find some that are trending, but for the most part, when we look at this chart, this is a mess, and it continues to be in there. So tomorrow is Wednesday, not Tuesday. Maybe we might see a little bit of a relief bounce after the last couple days. That's kind of, if I had to guess one way or another, I would think that might be in the cards, a little bit of a bounce, because I just saw so many names get kind of beaten up today and the oomph taken out of them. So this was so that's where we are. 29.35, which I've talked about probably a zillion times in the last couple weeks, that's the new top of value for the month of September. So that's the level for the S&P to really get above. Also, it won't take much for us to get above value on the 1 hour chart. That's 29.12. That's an easier hurdle to jump over. So, maybe we see that tomorrow. But a lot of chop on that 1 hour chart for today and through the overnight session, which of course we were closed on Monday. So let's talk a little bit about the performers, and it kind of gives you a little bit of a better picture when we see this go on. But SPY, chop, right? Opened up down on the day, didn't move too much. Q's finished a little bit lower from the open. Here continues to be the trouble spot is IWM. Small caps finished down 1.5% for the day, and added from when they opened, down about 0.5%. So they're not even through the bottom of value. We did not take out last week's lows, but this is looking pretty vulnerable. If we go to the weekly chart, sorry, that was the daily. This is the weekly. 145.25 remains the level to watch, and we've got a whole I was going to say week, but it's 3 days in front of us. So that's a developing bar. But just kind of continuing to see the theme of risk off, and if you look at crude, which finished down 2%, copper, is also, did come back from the lows this morning, but that's also at a crucial range, 2.545. Again, a copper is a good indication of kind of whether economies are expanding or they're retracting a bit, and copper continues to kind of move to the downside, even though coming back from the lows. So all this just seems to be getting more of a cloudy picture. So what did well today outside of the major indices? Of course, gold, silver. I mean, silver had a heck of a day. Finished up 4.3%, up 1.7. Well, we continue to see, I'd say for the first couple hours, that was the majority. There was a couple call buyers in some other equity names, but for the most part, we saw calls in a leveraged silver name. It was ACQ or ACQ, I think it is. Leveraged silver play. We also continue to see calls go up in WPM and PAAS, some of the silver. And again, I come back to this because if you cover up the symbol on your chart, these are the things that are trending, right? I mean, I went over the chart of the S&P, but if you look at things like WPM, I mean, the weekly chart of this thing, of course, they're getting a little bit overbought, so you want to remember to take some targets when things get overbought. I think the silver is now, an 82 RSI on the weekly, but, definitely has broken out of this sideways base. So, at this point, if you're not in this group, buying on pullbacks. This group saw a little bit of a pullback last week, right? A couple digestion days. And wants to go higher. So this is where people are flocking to. Where else? If you forget about gold and silver for a second, but take a look at what did well today. XLU, the utilities ETF. Look at this thing. Up huge today, up 1.8% today. This is a name that we are long in the Tribeca Trade Group tactical portfolio. I shouldn't say name, it's an ETF, so it's an ETF that we're long, but finished up almost 1.8%. So this is the stuff that's trending, right? And if you go back to that S&P, it looked like today a pretty good move out of some groups and into some others, right? Look at biotech, finished down 2.1%. Solar names finished down. The banks, which did okay last week, giving back some of those gains. Silver stocks getting hammered, down 2.5% for the day. So really tough depending on how you look at this. Yeah, look at solar down 2.6% today for the whole ETF. Industrials, just looking at where these things finished for the day, the underperformers. So it continues, and I don't know how long this will last, but we've been seeing this now, I think, for months, where the move has been going into utilities like this, which, again, nice to be long this one. REITs, which also made a 52-week high, right? People want yields in consumer staples, right? Very, very sexy areas of the market. Consumer staples, utilities, and REITs. They look much different than some of the other areas, like, for example, industrials. Looks like a mess. Financials, we know, looks like a mess. That I don't even think I have to put the chart up. But so, for now, I'm a little bit more tilted in my portfolio. So this is the Tribeca Trade Group tactical portfolio that we set up. I won't show you the tickers in here because it's not fair to paying members, but this is something new that we're doing, and since I set this up a few weeks back, it is outperforming the S&P, so it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. But I think one of the best performers is Costco. We've got Mondelez in here as well. I mentioned I've got the utilities ETF. I do have the solar ETF, which underperformed. I do have a couple of names that are underperforming. Like I've got NVTA in there, which might get stopped out on. So again, it's a portfolio, but it's an active portfolio. We rebalance it once a week. I've got targets like we trimmed Costco a little bit today. Took some gains in that one. Also, what else did we trim today? Colgate Palmolive CL is another name in there too. So, in any event, I think really that's the story of the market right now is that you look at some areas and, there's definitely outliers. Roku had a huge day today, which is a risk-on name. But I think these are a little bit of outliers for the day. So I'll talk just a couple of minutes about option activity. I mentioned all the silver miners seeing a lot of action today. We also saw BHC, Bausch and Lomb. This is a difficult name. We saw call buying in this about a month ago too, and nothing has happened in this name. So I don't really have usually when I see option activity, I have to have another reason to kind of get in there. I have to know a little bit about the company and really like it technically. This to me, I don't know. It's not to say that it can't work. I don't know the buyer's intent of the calls, but Western Digital had a good day today. The semis charts don't look bad. We saw call buying in Western Digital. We also saw a little bit of dip buying in analog devices. Micron also seems to be doing okay. So it's interesting. The semis group actually seems to be doing okay. It's not one of those names, although this is kind of sideways, but it doesn't look like it's trending down for the time being. What else do we see? Tillery was probably the name of the day. We did see a little bit of calls in this one. You have to zoom in. This is now a 30. I can't believe this thing is a $30 stock. But clearly for a day trade. What was the high in this name? It's over 200. 300. Down to $30. Whew. All right. So any other things to mention in the spreadsheets that pointed out? Square. I had this one highlighted because it got 2 upgrades today. Down 1% on the day. So even some names that had nice analyst notes on them, just challenging. So again, it feels like today a lot of names seemed like they were rotated out of, maybe a little bit riskier names, and more risk-off names seemed like they were rotated in. Utilities, REITs, consumer staples, which was also up 1% for the day. Up 1% since the open. Started the day down on the day. A couple other charts. This is a name that I own, Mondelez. Looks like it's trying to break out. It is finally broken out of that little consolidation. That's a name that I remain long. All right, guys, that is it for today's recap. Have a great night. If you have any questions about this portfolio that we started a couple weeks ago, that is outperforming the S&P for the last couple weeks, you can email me, or you could just send me a tweet on Twitter. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.